Are known as larders.
Sorry, Speed's in the middle of a sentence, and I went live for you guys.
Oh,
Go ahead and finish the sentence. though. He's talking about some tea. We're talking about.
no, I'm not going to talk about lemon balm tea anymore. I'm sorry, I didn't realize we were doing it.
I just wanted to. I was just a little. It was actually me that wasn't prepared for all this, not Speed. Speed's been sitting here patiently while I went. So I hadn't done my makeup or anything or done anything since I got off work because I went grocery shopping right after work because I had to. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me, Speed. It's great to have you here tonight and see all my lovely friends out there in the live chat. Maybe some of your friends too. I know that you're friends with good old Math Pig out there. You got Never Again, Stephanie Helms. That's a friend of the Hive. Orgay. What's that? Your tinfoil hat?
Well, yeah, just in case you go all woo on me,
Okay, yeah, I'm prepared to. I'm prepared for that. Yes. People often come into this conversation thinking I'm going to go woo. I haven't left anybody with that impression though. Most people leave with the impression like, eh. So you probably will too. So it's fine. I love having this conversation. It's a topic that I like to chatter about. So I'm glad you wanted to kind of understand it. So I've just been raising my voice about the Gaia hypothesis here lately, just trying to ruffle some feathers, if anything, get some ideas and people thinking about the interlaced nature of the global ecology, right? So what about it did intrigue you enough to want to come and talk to me one-on-one about it?
Well, it is the logical result of strict naturalism, I think. Basically that there's just one big interwoven mesh of life. Mm-hmm. And that we're just like I see myself, well, you know how mushrooms work, right? There's this mycelium under the ground that's a real mushroom. And then it pops up a little mushroom fruit. And then it dies a few days later. That's how I see myself, as one of those fruits that just popped up, and I'm going to die, a few years later, and another one will pop up, and another one, and another one, and we're all part of sort of the same thing, and you fall back into the same mesh. But I'm interested in your understanding of it, probably to springboard up.
It's probably really quite similar. It's this it's this network of underground systems of mycelium and roots. Sometimes they'll call it the mycorrhizal network, which is the root network. Sometimes they'll call it the mycelium network. It depends on what you're reading and who's writing it, how they describe it. Now, the mycelium act like nerves, right? That they can send messages. We've detected that. We've kind of picked up on this message system. They can also transport myriad of nutrients, carbon, obviously water, right? And water is what they use to carry most everything, just like our bodies, except for they're carrying it through networks under the earth, right? Like under the top layer of soil, and they're able to kind of sculpt the ecology in a way as to better aggregate what's best for everybody in the ecology instead of just one individual organism. That is why taking an alien organism and transplanting it into an ecology can be very detrimental, because not only what you see on the surface is only half the battle, where they're fighting for nutrients in the earth, and some plants have evolved in an area that's so rich in nutrients that they'll just vampire and suck it up. Some are evolved to that they can't survive with the added moisture that the environment, it's whatever, but how they respond to it. When they do really well in it, it's a problem. When you get an invasive species that does really well anywhere, including your little kitty cats there.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's my position on the mycelium. And the really cool thing about it is that we see their languages. We see their communications. We don't know what they're saying yet, any more than we know what the bullfrog's saying, right, when it's screaming in the marsh. But we got an idea of what kind of messages are being sent, but we don't know the reception on the other end and how that's interpreted, who's interpreting it, what other organisms might be also stirred by these interactions with natural sensory perception, right? That something else out there as part of this big system is sending out some kind of signal that we're all responding to. The mycelial network and the stuff underground is just the tip of the iceberg, right? That's what we're understanding now. There's chemical signals that are sent through the air. We have, visual cues as humans and audio cues that we're just starting to understand our own, like our responses to things like infrasound and stuff like that in the environment.
Right.
So how much of these signals are controlling us these signals are controlling everything about our culture and society and things like that. Like why we're drawn to certain patterns, why we are, why we look for faces and patterns, why we like this color standing out among that color, red among green is like a human's favorite thing. Like that's, I don't.
Yeah.
It's fruit in a tree, right? It's
Yep.
something sweet waiting there for you. We respond to that. That's why the stoplight's red, because it knows you'll stop and look at it. Because it's
Right.
and the green is just green is go. Green is nothing to see here, nothing special, and then red stands out. Red is attractive to us as frugivores. Other species are attracted to red, to other primates especially. We've developed this within the system. There's the signals that we get from the environment. The whole point of us having this so well developed sensory perception and what levels of light we can see and everything is all based on that. Now we have binocular vision for a completely different reason. Before we started becoming frugivores, our early ancestors were insectivores, so we got this straightforward vision to help us hop through the treetops catching grasshoppers and katydids and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
like when I walk through the woods, the green basically sets me down into a lower level of activity that's more fuzzed out, and I start communicating. And there's all sorts of cues that you can find in the woods, and we're pretty well adapted for walking in the forest and basically wooded areas or areas with a lot of vegetation. There's an interesting phenomena, and I always say that synchronicity is the low-hanging fruit in the universe. And if you just open yourself up, if you stop focusing on the inner workings of your mind, you open yourself up to your senses, you will see patterns and synchronicity everywhere. And one of the things that you can do when you walk in the woods is you can find natural paths that you just have to see in a certain way. Like you're looking at a bunch of brush, right? And a bunch of forest, right? And if you relax yourself, you can see, oh, that place looks like there's a hole in it. There's a path, right? And you start following that path. And if you do that without any purpose at all, amazing things happen. You'll find like some fantastic rock or some river or structure that you never thought you were going to find. And you keep doing it, and then it becomes almost habit forming, this following of paths, right? And this original stuff came from a bullshit artist named Carlos Castaneda, who happened to write a lot of really great stuff about mysticism in basically Native Native Americans in Mexico, basically.
Yeah.
What he's talking about.
I used to read, like, there was a book that I read when I was younger called In the Shadow of the Shaman, which talked about some of this stuff too, and got me kind of like looking into animism and stuff. But I don't, just to clarify, there's nothing supernatural about the Gaia hypothesis. But the idea of all, there is validity to the idea that we're all synced into this big system that's all organisms within it are synced in and locked in with each other in a global system of like environment, that they're all interacting. All these different signals are being sent either planktonically through aerobic signals, different pheromones released into the water or into the air by different organisms. All this stuff is triggering different responses, even within us, right? As individual species, there's different responses you have when you step outside, and there's different fragrances in the air. For instance, you have a different emotional response. You have a different, you may change what you desire to eat. Smelling someone cutting grass might make you think, oh, it might be a good day to barbecue, because you smell someone cutting grass, something like that. Smell a wood fire, you might be like, I feel like eating some chili tonight. It might trigger. So all these different signals from your environment, and just like that, whatever's whatever's in the air.
And then the other aspect of this is trying to figure out what I am, what I consider myself, right? Like my own, like, well, the concept of self. And I've done a lot of work with that. And about 10 years ago, studying neuroscience and studying consciousness, I came upon a theory that was, it's called the embodied mind. It's a theory that your consciousness is not just in your brain, it's in your entire body. And your responses of your entire body, like your gut, is a really important part of your mind, actually. And I extended that to be an enworlded mind. And so I started to fuzz out and modify. Like, we're born and we all construct an idea of self. We get an idea of self from looking in the mirror, looking in other people's eyes, interacting with other people. And that becomes sort of a rigid habit throughout our lives, right? And then as we near the latter third of your life, which is where I am, we start saying, oh my God, myself is going to disappear. What am I going to do? I was so addicted to myself that my death appeared to be a problem, right? So I've been rewiring that to the point where, number one, I think my consciousness is in a 50-foot ball that resides around me. It's how the world interacts on my brain. So the world is like the software that's driving the hardware of my mind to make consciousness. And if I were completely locked out of all sensory input from my body and everything else, my consciousness would blip out. It would just go into a tiny little
You wouldn't
point.
want to be that either. You wouldn't want to be
No.
you wouldn't want to exist as that. Who would?
Yeah, well, I think I would think slower, and people that have locked-in syndrome, which are people that are completely cut off from their senses, they can only move their eyelids a little bit sometimes, not always, sometimes. They appear really calm, according to some neuroscientists. And the reason for that, I think, is that your consciousness reduces and slows down and starts to disappear with the world not impinging upon you. So the world is running me. So what am I? And then if I look at, the surface of my skin, right, and I realize how many microorganisms and how fuzzy that interface is between me and the rest of the world, and me and my relationship with oxygen and food and water, and the idea that we get completely replaced every 7 years. Well, I have the idea that I can change my sense of self to not be me. Like, I was coming home in, I think it was 2010, and there were this child running around the yard, and she danced up the steps and ran in the house. And the way she danced up the steps was like this, like a happy little deer, right? And I thought for a minute, it's like, okay. And at that time, I think it was 2001 when I got some really bad news that I might have lung cancer. And, so I was dealing with my own mortality. But then I thought, my God, I don't care, because that kid is conscious and alive and playing and happy. And like all the nostalgia I had for losing my youth, it's still out there in every child born, right? In every little kid playing out in the fields, right? I grew up in hay on the farm and all that stuff, and I have nostalgia for that. But there are kids doing that today. And I thought, why do I care that this particular thing experiences it when all these other things are experiencing it? And so my sense of self starts to dissolve a little bit more. And you dissolve it a little bit more when you start looking at the mycorrhizal network, below us, right? And all the plants and animals. And then you look at the process of evolution through time. Yeah, and you realize that
the world, that's where people get so confused when they think about evolution, because it wasn't this and that growing together. It's this whole system grows together and changes all together. At once. Yes, everything shifting, and when there's an extinction event, it impacts everything, and you see the ripple of these changes throughout the environment. Whether it's a localized extinction event or a global one, you see like the ripple effect of new biomes coming into replace that in that area where, previously there may have been the dinosaurs, and all of a sudden we start having these whatever the things that first popped up. We had like crazy giant birds and huge reptiles. Crocodiles took another shot at the top predator spot for a minute.
Yeah.
It was a wild, wild world after an extinction event, seeing the things that come back in after that.
Yeah, there's all this ebbing and flowing and, interlocking and dead ends and all that.
Yeah.
Like if, and then we worry about our own mortality. Well, then when you think about the entire human race, if we could rush ahead 10 million years, and if our line lasts that long, we wouldn't recognize the animal that we saw that was a human, having changed over 10 million years. We would look like we were, visiting another primate in a zoo. It would look entirely different to us. And we'd be like, oh my God, the human race doesn't exist anymore. Well, yes, it does. And it always will, right? Because it got to be.
Right. So. As long as there's viable offspring from what is a human now, it'll be the human race, no matter what it turns into. It may be a new species of human at that point, but we draw those lines between species. We decide that how much genetic change has to take place before it's a new species. And those lines are so inconsistent between different classes and orders and stuff.
Right.
And where you draw the species line. That it's arbitrary. It really is. It's weird to say that, but just what we have today are the surviving clades of a larger group of organisms that didn't quite make the cut. They're very similar, but not quite as good as the ones we have. So we're all like that. We're all the survivors of whatever these pink, fleshy, hairy creatures that we are, the survivors of 6 major extinction events. That we are so perfect for what we do. It's only in this last couple 100 years that we kind of started becoming a problem for the system that we were a part of. Before that we were pretty good at propagating things. We were nature's perfect dispersal system, right? That all organisms have some kind of role. Animals have a role, either simply just culling and transporting like protein, predators eating animals and shitting in the grass. And then you have organisms that, like our ancestors, which were frugivores, right? That we transported seeds and plants and things like that. As we developed more and more, we started transporting animals and stuff too. And we were really good at that. We were really good at what we were initially designed to do by all these billions of years of evolving through different extinction events and different bottlenecking and radiation and all these different steps to get right where we are now. And we took that skill of spreading seeds and multiplied it, and now we're like too good at it, and we're spreading everything everywhere, making the world homogenous.
But that might also create an interesting ecology. And if we accept extinction rather than bucket, that might be interesting too. I had an experience back in, I think it was maybe 20 years old. I was walking in the woods, and I was, of course, I was tripping balls on LSD. And I was seeing all this fungus and all, the woods and all the greenery. And then I came upon this stump, and on the stump was a Coca-Cola can. And I looked at it, and I thought, God, that's way out of place. But then I thought, no, it ain't. That's basically the droppings of this weird primate called a human. It was one of the things I did put there, right? And so I integrated it into the whole. And like if you look big picture, you keep going further and further out.
Well, we're going to leave a hell of a fossil record as a species, regardless of what transpires. The human race as a total, as a species, we're going to leave some great fossils for future generations.
Oh yeah.
Probably to
Yeah.
a level that's never been seen before. I could probably
Right.
it'll be like the Cambrian explosion of
Yeah.
finds for whoever discovers our culture's development. They're like, whoa, here's where humans sprang from. I don't know if by that point. I hope that we've developed to the point where we're on other planets and stuff, and we don't even have, it's human ancestry. It's not humans. That there's
Yeah.
races out there with human ancestry from different worlds and things like that. And that'd be kind of cool. And they
Yeah.
trace their ancestry back to little old Earth. But I don't know if we're going to make it. We got to learn how to take care of this one that we're on now before we can start thinking about trying to live on other ones.
Yeah, we can pollute it out of existence and dry the thing up pretty well. This problem with digging carbon up is, but then windmills kill whales, right? Did you know
Right. Oh, wonderful.
that? Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, came up with that one. Yeah.
Well, I know they give you cancer, but that was good. That was good old Trump that said that.
Yeah. Well,
But,
I think what happens is the whales jump really high and they get hit by the turbines of the windmill, and then
That's
terrible. And then they're
We should
killed.
just shut them all down so we can figure out
We should
what's
shut
going
them all
on.
down.
We'll
Yeah.
figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Because obviously something's attracting them to the windmills.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and we're not talking about turbines. We're talking about windmills. Like, oh, I should have rescheduled that. I didn't realize we were going to be going for this long. We haven't been going that long. Only half an hour.
Yeah.
I got something going live. Don't leave here to go watch that. That can be.
Okay. What do you have going live?
Oh, it's not live anyway. It's not.
Oh, it's a premiere?
Monday. It's Monday. It's not a premiere. It's Monday. Never mind. That was something that went out earlier. No worries. Anyway, back to the conversation. My alarm was going off though. Totally derailed it with where were we? Windmills killing whales. Yes. That's a real ecological threat, right? That's something we have to think about for the future of all species on this planet, right?
Yeah.
If the windmills are going to be doing that. Okay.
So
go
never
ahead.
again says it would take an acid trip for me to accept some of the human droppings. Just saying, like some of the stuff we got in the 70s, like blue Easter egg. But the thing is, there are different perspectives you can take. Like there's one greater perspective you could take where you can see all of life on Earth and the entire transformation of Earth from a ball of magma to wherever it ends up as basically being absorbed by the sun when it starts to swell up, right, and burns up or whatever. But I mean, that is going to end the arc of human life. You can look at that entire thing. There is a perspective where you can look at it as one big blooming flower, and the dent that we're making in that flower with what we're doing right now is so tiny compared to the whole story that is unfolding that you can take. The point is that you can take different perspectives, and Gaia is a perspective that you can take that's a lot wider ranging. It's a lot more, it's selfless, right? You start to eliminate this idea of self as this bag of skin and these memories and all that stuff. Like there are some neat thought experiments we could go through. My poor children, I ran some of these thought experiments on them when they were 10 years old. Like the idea of being replaced, Star Trek, the teleporter, right? Where you're completely replaced.
That you die and just rebuilds you on the other side.
And would it make a difference? And then I, so I was talking to my kids when they were like 9, 10, 11 years old maybe. And I said, well, what difference would it make? If like when you fall asleep at night, I told them you're identical twins, and what me and your mom do is we switch you. So in the morning you wake up as your brother, and they looked at me with their big blue eyes like, what? And they thought, it's like, how would you know? And it's like, but the thing is,
my dad tried that on us, me and my twin brother. Same thing. What'd you all like talk?
Really?
Yes.
Did did the same thing?
Yeah. And he would say, "Don't forget you're destined today," and I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, exactly right. So, oh, that's cool. I want to meet him.
Yeah, he passed away in 2011.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Damn it. Uh, yeah, anyway, but the thing is that
I
when
wish
you
you
go to
could have too,
sleep
though. Yeah.
when you go to sleep at night and you wake up in the morning, you are in essence a very new person. For one thing, your neurochemistry has changed radically. You have rewired a huge vast swaths of your brain from dreaming, going through sleep dream cycles, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wake up as an entirely different person. And so the idea is that I'm all sentimental about these memories that I happen to have and my personality and this body, this
Mm-hmm.
bag of crap, bag of goo, right? And like, why do I care about that? Why is it any different from waking up as an entirely different human being? And if that's the case, then the people that are alive right now are no different than like, okay, the transition from me going to sleep tonight and becoming completely unconscious and waking up in the morning as hopefully Mike again in the morning. I keep hoping I'll wake up as Mike, but I don't know why. But I mean, what would be the difference between that and saying, okay, what if I disappear completely? I die, and there's all these other living people around. Why would I care? I mean, what is it to me? You know, it's when you start to view it from that perspective, this fear of death thing kind of goes away.
That's what I like to think about it too. Is there's nothing about me as an organism that will not go back into the system and be reused as more organism. So I'm not done. Nothing about me
Yeah,
is done.
exactly.
Every cell in my body is going to be reused for something else, some other organism. I'm going to get to be that. Like I won't
Right.
be able to experience it, but I can know as I drift off that part of me is going to go be. I don't know. For a while, I might be like a deuterovore, right? Like a baby roach or worm or something that's
Yeah.
fly, something that's eating. That would eat the remains of a big tetrapod. But as I move through the system, I'm going to become more and more. And that I'm going to become the once that bug shits in the grass, I'm going to. Those my nutrients are going to be used for the grass. Now I'm grass, and then so
Yeah.
a goat's going to come along and eat me, and I'm a baby goat. Whatever. I return to the grass in the cycle. Whatever. It's going to be freaking wonderful. It's amazing. I'm going to spread all around. That's what I want to do. That's what I
Yeah.
want for my future. I don't want to be locked inside a box where I can't return to the earth. I don't want that. I don't want to be
Well,
burned to a crisp where I can't, where all my nutrients and stuff dissipate into the atmosphere. I mean, I will get to return again into the
right.
cycle differently that way, but I'm not looking
Yeah,
forward to that as
I
much.
don't like cremation much,
Yeah.
but uh, I'm going to write a will, and I'm going to will most of my nutrients to a weeping willow tree,
Hmm.
so that in fact, I want them to bury me about 2 feet under on the roots of a good solid weeping willow tree, and then plant psilocybin mushroom in my body, so that the fungus basically takes the nutrients and delivers it to the tree, and I become a weeping willow because I really want that perspective. For one thing, I'm not very tall. I'm only 5'8", and a weeping willow tree, hell, 30 feet. I mean, that's awesome.
Ryan says, she said, I want to be weed, smoke me. Yeah, you plant
You
some weed
smoke me,
on me.
right?
Yes, I would love to plant. Like you all could plant some buds over me, and then every year on the anniversary of my death or on my birthday or whatever the hell you want to celebrate about me, come out there and pick some buds off and smoke me up.
Right. I'm hoping they get that. Some states have changed the laws so that you can bury people in the woods,
Hmm.
like two
Hmm.
feet down, and let them rot, and feed trees and stuff. And Minnesota's not one of those states yet. And
Minnesota
I'm
should be.
hoping.
It has so much woods.
I know, yeah, it has so much. And fish food, for God's sake, we could just, like in India, put them on a pier and shove them off in one of our 10,000 lakes and feed the
Hmm.
fish, for God's sake.
Yeah, they
Just
actually
kidding.
blame some of the man-eating crocodiles and stuff over there on people doing that, saying, "Oh, y'all dump
Oh,
these
really?
things in the river, and then that makes the crocodiles want to eat people." which I guess I could see the.
I think there's quite a difference between dead animals and living animals as far as diet. I'm not sure if that holds
So
up. I'm not sure if
crocodiles, they'll eat anything. Yeah,
they'll eat anything.
Yeah, if they can tear
Yeah,
it
they're like
apart and it's meat.
just like my cat. Anything that moves, he'll attack. Right, like my mouse cursor or whatever. He didn't care. He's trying to eat my mouse cursor. So
crocodiles are good for the ecology too because they take an animal. Because they have to spin to tear pieces of it off, and fresh kills are hard to do that with. So they'll take an animal and sink it down in the bottom to the bottom of the water and stick it under a log or under some rocks or just shove it down in the mud so it's stuck, and leave it there to decay for a couple of days, and then come back and eat it. But the whole time it's down there decaying, it's feeding all the fish and turtles and stuff that come along to take a bite of it. So it's actually helping out the ecosystem as well.
Yeah, I love the fall because all of a sudden, like, when it goes under 32, all the leaves fall and everything, and the worms come up and drag the leaves underground and everything starts to rot very quickly. And there's a high amount of chemical transformation going on, in the early fall. Then of course it goes into stasis in the winter. And then the next spring, everything just starts to really boil with transformation. Turning
the maple tree should start churning here in just a couple of weeks, right?
Oh yeah,
Early March, they'll be churning up something, and then we'll start to see the early spring flowers in late March, and it'll be here before we know it. Hold your breath, people. Winter doesn't last as long as it used to. It doesn't seem like it anyway.
Did you hear that, Loki? Summer's coming. Summer's coming. My kitties are so bummed about winter every year.
Yeah. Do they go outside in the winter?
Yeah, they go out there and walk around. But this new one, Snack, he goes out and jumps around in the snow, and he gets covered in snow, and he plays it. I've never seen a cat do that. But I think there's something wrong with Snack. We decided that his brain is really tiny.
He's so cute, though.
Oh, he is so cute.
He's just got a lot of kitten in him. Be nice to Snack. Snack, where are you? Kitty, kitty, kitty. Well,
Snack has 30% too much snack in him. So we could use a little less. But
Rick says tulips are sprouting there. So.
Oh, wow.
That's happening.
Yep. Yeah, they're the first, those things and a few swamp flowers are the first things that come up in Minnesota. So
Entropy fan, that's alligators that live in Florida. That's why they're not working. The crocodiles aren't working against the Floridians. Well, there are crocodiles in Florida, like down at the tip by Miami. There's some American crocodiles, but they don't go too far north because they cannot take winter at all. Crocodiles do not do winter. Alligators are like, they're cool. They can actually sleep with their nose sticking through the ice. They're so good at handling winter, but crocodiles not so much.
So something that interests me is Ellen Watts. I'm pretty sure it was Ellen Watts where I got it. He did a thing on Genesis, basically the Adam and Eve story. And so basically primates, early primates, right, didn't think about things, didn't think about the end of their life and stuff like that. And they didn't really have a concept of ending, okay? And or maybe other mammals like raccoons or whatever. So they don't think about stuff. They just live and they bloom, and they're it's almost like a Garden of Eden concept, that they're just okay with whatever happens to them in the moment, right? And they're living in the moment. And then humans developed these extra layers of cortex where we were able to plan ahead and figure out what happens in the future, look at a dead body and realize, that's going to happen to me someday. And so that was the equivalent of eating from the tree of knowledge or whatever. Yeah. And basically we acquired that ability to start thinking about things in terms of ourselves. And the fall of man would be described as when our thinking became so egocentric that we started to worry for our own self, our own lives, our own health, and whatever, right? And the resolution is to look outward to this higher power, this thing above ourselves, the greater perspective, and to have faith in that, and not worry about all these little details. And that makes sense of the Christian myths. And I wonder if some of the Old Testament writers or the people that put the myths together weren't in some way trying to explain that to themselves. This idea that we can, like, Gaia is a perspective, right? It's a perspective on life and the whole, and it's a much wider perspective, right?
It's about how, basically, a perspective on how organisms all throughout the world interact with each other and are all part of the same network. Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah, and you know, we have this mind that can model things, and what we tend to do with it, which would be the equivalent of sin, is model it as, oh, I've got to live and I've got to have the most peanuts, right? I mean, I have to gather the most nuts, and I have to give myself the most pleasure, and it's me, and that perspective becomes very anxiety ridden, because you're always fearful of losing your nuts.
Losing your nuts, yes.
Losing your nuts is a big fear among humans. You know, we're afraid we're going to lose our nuts, and we're going to, we're going to lose our consciousness. We're not going to be the one to experience things and to have that donut. And then but because we have this ability to model things, we can choose to model things differently. And I choose to model things in a Gaia sort of way, right? In something that's happier, something that's a wider perspective, right?
Yeah, it's just to me, it's just a more inclusive way to look at life.
And poetic.
If you want an afterlife, there's an idea of that we kind of just talked about, that you get to go back in and you get to be part of this, you get to be part of that, regardless, because conscious is fleeting, or your self is fleeting. Like what'd you say? Every 7 years you replace yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're completely replaced. I'm not the same person I was 7 years ago, obviously. And none of us are. So it allows you to be in, it's like, I guess what I'm trying to do is maybe say, hey, religious people, if these are the things you need, and I came up with this argument, honestly, to run it on Creationist and presuppositionalist, because I can grant a lot of presuppositionalist premises with this. I just can't. I haven't really got a chance to run it on too many of them. Mostly I've run it on atheists, though, because it was actually this community that was like, hey, yeah, we think that's weird. I want to talk to you about that. And it's like, okay. So,
there are a lot of atheists that are still laboring under some of the same religious frameworks of thought that, basically they grew up with, and there are ways to get around that. And that's something that...
well, and I get that a lot of atheists also take a position that's like, I don't want to have this. I don't want to have religious framework and afterlife and stuff. I've just got rid of that and come to terms with atheism, because people, especially people who have escaped from other religions or from forbidden cults, they don't want to have that in their life and don't want to be exposed to that. And those are the people that I guess seem to be getting the most pushback from, are the anti-theist aspect of the community. And I get why. I understand why. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, well, Christianity is the ultimate me, right? They aren't just worried about me now. They're worried about me lasting for eternity, right? They want fucking eternal life for me, not for you or for the guy down the block. They want their own eternal life. So in a lot of ways, they are the most sinful, most degraded form of this framework, right? This framework of thinking about what we are. Now, if you're if you're an atheist and you're a naturalist, if you take naturalism to its logical conclusion, you will eliminate ideas of self. And hence you will have attained something mystical and spiritual without any religion at all, just naturalism. And that's what I've driven to all of my life, basically since I was 15 and had this transformative experience where I started looking outside of, this perspective. And it's interesting, but you need to follow naturalism to its logical conclusion. And that is it. You are an illusion. So, or you're a construct, a mental construct, and you can change it.
Yeah, right. And we're built by what the system allows us to experience, right? What we only experience what we need to fill our function and our role. We don't see the spectrums of light that we don't need to. We're not pollinators, so we don't need to see in ultraviolet. Right. And it changes the way that once you accept something like that, it changes the way that even who you are and how you experience the world around you is only into the limited capacity that your ability to be aware of the world that you live in has allowed. We only within the last 70 years or so did we really even start to experiment and to work with different wavelengths of energy that we can't necessarily sense, like radiation and nuclear energy and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in a relationship with the world around us, and that. Not to say that those two things are separate. There's only just one thing, but we're in a sensory relationship with the world around us, and what we sense. Like people ask you, they talk about the frailty or the fallibility of the senses, right? Mm-hmm. The senses aren't fallible. We sense exactly what we need to sense from the environment because our sensing the environment is a relationship. And we are taking a perspective on reality that is absolutely true for us, given the nature of what we are. Does that make sense?
As organisms, as organisms within a system of organisms, right?
Right. We're taking from the environment exactly the sensory input that we need to gauge what the environment means to us, right?
Yeah. Well, and what the environment needs from us and what we need from the environment to thrive. Right. Yeah. We all keep it all. Everything needs to be kept in this delicate balance, which I think a lot of people forget that we're part of that system and want to remove themselves from nature. And humans really have spent quite a bit of effort to remove themselves from nature, and to our benefit too. I mean, we live longer, healthier lives, and we're taller. I guess that's something that's we've gained. Generally, just we're bigger all around, and I think we're getting bigger too. It hasn't really.
I think we're getting taller.
Yeah, on average,
getting taller. Yeah, and I think our fingernails, the length of our fingernails are growing or are getting bigger, and they've been able to figure this out over the last several hundred years that we're actually changing in that respect. And I don't know why. I don't know why that would happen, but some genetic, probably a neutral mutation that, it doesn't really mean anything, but it seems to be fixing in the population.
Yeah. That's maybe we'll find a use for it later.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. Well, now when it comes to our presence in this environment, it's funny to think that you can move from one to the other, but there's things that you'll never be able to get back, like getting back the ability to see, like just night vision, the reflector in our eyes. As a human species, we'll never get that night vision back. That kind of sucks.
Yep.
The tapium lucidum, or however you say it, that allows for us for other animals to be able to see at night. We lost ours, so I always, if I could get one animal feature back that we lost in our in our development, that's probably one of the ones I would choose. Maybe one of the top ones.
I think I'd choose swinging from branch to branch.
You want some brachiating shoulders?
Yeah, I want brachiating shoulders. Yeah, I want to be able to swing around in the trees. I just do that all day. I mean, talk about your cardio workout, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
think about the views you would get. You could throw yourself way up high because they can launch themselves. Think about the things you could see.
Yeah, it'd be great.
There's a channel I watch that has an orangutan and some gibbons that live together in an enclosure, and the gibbons are always jumping around, swinging around, and slapping the orangutan around. Yeah. I've seen them mess with tigers too.
Well, but an interesting form of evolution is cultural evolution, basically, and ideas like Gaia and what we're talking about, and taking a different perspective on self and all of that, would allow us to culturally evolve to the point where we are kind of, I think we'd be kind of nicer. We'd be a lot nicer to each other, and take there's a lot of things that we can do with the knowledge that we're gaining from science and naturalism to figure out what we should do. So, we've got the is that we're learning a lot about, and we're deriving an ought, right? And there's a real positive view of humanity in the future that we could take, that some science fiction writers have done a good job of. Not many. Most science fiction writers want to write about the dark shit, right? The dark shit that's going to happen. But
I mean, it's an apocalyptic mindset,
Yeah. But culturally, we have some choices we can make, and YouTube has become a hell of a tool for that, because we're all getting our ideas out there, right? And urging good ones and bad ones, whatever.
Yeah. Well, at least we're able to challenge the bad ones publicly, though. But I've been getting freaking flack from YouTube lately. But they've been nixing my videos when I'm doing responses to bad science and woo and stuff. They've been I was doing some
copyright stuff.
What was it? National Geographic struck one of my videos for just using a clip to show, hey, this is a Humboldt squid. This is what it looks like, and this is how big they are, and how aggressive they are, or whatever. Like, nope, you can't. Right. Like a 2 minute and some second clip, and I was just talking over it, just talking about the subject. So, what kind of BS is that?
Well, the bots are in charge of that, and they haven't trained the bots to have a whole lot of intelligence.
Yeah,
and I can't believe that National Geographic would give a shit. If Answers in Atheism with 600 subscribers, stole a little clip, and what exactly am I stealing from them, right? But the bots get you because they've trained them to find that content. And it's amazing, but like CBS, NBC, National Geographic, any show that's on TV, those guys are just greedy as shit. And they've got apparently... So I don't know what they do to YouTube, but somehow your shit gets flagged instantly in some cases, right? Whereas if I play Standing for Truth videos or Sal Cordova, I don't get anything, right? There's no problem. But if I play like 30 seconds from The Tonight Show, bam, my video's down,
Well, Answers in Genesis took my video down. Answers in Genesis did.
So what do you got to do?
It makes me so mad, because Answers in Genesis that was about the freaking crabs, about the samurai crabs, with the faces on them. They did this stupid video about that evolutionists think they developed that to look like real samurai faces to scare people. Ha ha ha. That's not the case at all. And I did a video response to it, and I was right in the middle of it. Gone. Everybody's live chat's like, it's gone.
So what do you got to have a lot of money to give YouTube to do that for you?
Yeah.
I mean,
Dapper Dino said that happened to them back in the day, when they were responding to AIG. I don't know what I have to do to get it. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, we should do it to them.
Right.
I'm not sure
Like,
what you have to do.
what would I have to like do a watermark across the screen? Property of AIG.
Right.
Uh,
I don't.
yeah, but it like smaller. Like I did a response to spirit science. Me and Maya did a response to spirit science last night. Uh, they don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you got to be a big baby, AIG.
I don't know. Maybe you have to contact YouTube and ask them to put you into the algorithm or into the.
I make response videos to AIG. Put me in the algorithm, YouTube. Can you hear me now? I'm right here. Hello, little channel. Just wanna respond to some of the big channels' nonsense. That's all, please.
Yeah, Dr. Joel Duff has been really going after AIG with they're having this internal war. Ken Ham had a falling out with was it Creation Ministries International or ICR back in 2006, and he's been covering that. And now Ken Ham is trying to have a falling out with some other people because he thinks they're adopting too much evolution. They're just going too far, right? And
With
Ken Ham doesn't like it.
Institute or who?
I think it's other churches and certain individuals, and I'm not sure what groups they belong to. But some of them have adopted the idea that birds and dinosaurs basically came from one created kind, that sort of thing. And they're young Earth creationists, but he calls them young Earth evolutionists, and he's just going nuts trying to shut him down because he's kind of like a power hungry son of a bitch, and he runs that whole show over there, and he's also a money grubbing devil.
Mm-hmm.
I think I looked at their budget and they made a tremendous amount of money in 1 year, like in the hundreds of millions. It's like, wow. I don't know.
Well, so far, Creation Institute hasn't. I've done like 5 responses to them, and they've never hit me with anything. So, some of these other smaller ministries don't seem to care as much. AIG.
Yeah, Ken Ham is power hungry, so he wants to run the creation show.
And networks are the worst. Anyway, on the topic, did you have any last minute questions or comments about this?
Just that, like there's a couple of ideas. Number one, you can change your perspective in any way you want, basically. And number two, I think human beings are inclined to living at ease and in peace and without anxiety and without worry. And so that implies that your perspective ought to take a certain positive direction. And the idea that all life is one thing and interconnected is one of those positive directions. And if we're gonna change our perspective about ourselves on this planet, I implore you to take the high road and pick something, that's inclusive of all life and all the diverse humans and living things out there, and take a more positive attitude toward everything. James Apperson, you anti-natalist. Anyway.
I think James was out there earlier, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He probably still is. But if you got a choice. We know that we can rewire the way we model our, the way we live. We can change
the way
our
we work with the system. We could use the natural systems that are there. We can work with them. We don't have to work against them.
Right.
We can.
Well, they figured that out with the Dust Bowl back in the 30s, right, to some extent, but they didn't learn the lesson thoroughly. They learned a little bit of a lesson that you can't just plow the Midwest, the entire Midwest, plow the whole thing, right, and plant beans.
Yeah, they're in the middle of doing that right now. They're still homogenous.
Some farmers are just horrible about how they plant. Other ones are pretty cool. At least strips of trees.
You get about 100 miles west of here, and it's just corn as far as the eye can see. It's not.
Yeah.
I mean,
The
like
first
literally, as far as the eye can see, maybe little farmhouses scattered in between.
the first plane trip I took was out west and going across western Minnesota and the Dakotas,
Mm-hmm.
and all I saw was squares, little colored squares everywhere. Everything was a square, and I'm like, that ain't natural. It's like what? I mean, I'm 35,000 feet up in the air, and I'm seeing all these little fucking squares, and it's like, okay, we've had an impact here. We've had a
Yeah.
little too much impact, and that
That's in
kind
the
of freaked.
Dakotas.
Yeah, it was North Dakota and western
Wow.
Minnesota. So yeah,
Yeah.
and they just farm everything. It's just all these
Mm.
little squares. Particularly western Minnesota, it's really bad that way.
Was it squares of cattle farms or was it squares of?
Various crops and cattle farms, and wheat and corn and whatever. I'm sure Iowa is even more horrifying, because if I drive from Minneapolis to Des Moines, Iowa, all you see is cornfields. Fortunately, they have a little stretch where there's about 30 miles of windmills, and that's the most exciting goddamn thing in Iowa. The
Yeah.
rest of it, if you like looking at corn, I mean, like the first time you look at a corn plant, it's really cool. Wow, big grass, wide leaves. But after 50 billion of them while you're driving for 4 hours, no.
And most of
Boring.
that isn't for human consumption either. That's to feed cows that live
Feed the
out
cows.
further west.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's all I got. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that I agree with you. We've made an impact, and people who don't want to acknowledge that's just silliness, right?
Yeah.
But I appreciate you coming on and kind of talking
Yeah.
with me about this subject. I've done this for so far. I've done this with Mark, and I did it with. Did I do it with Knock? Did I do this with Knock? Somebody would remember if I did. I think I've talked to a couple people about it though.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Anytime.
yeah, we are going to be doing a creation watch on. Let me see here. Just pulling my schedule up. Just going to lay this out real quick.
Wow. You have a schedule.
Yeah, I
I'm
tried
just,
to.
I'm just kind of ad hoc.
All right, so this Wednesday, I'm gonna actually switch that around. It's supposed to be we're gonna do the Paleo Logos video that I did about the what is a kind, and then Friday we will have the Machine Elves. Do you know about the Machine Elves?
No.
Okay, yeah, check that out. It's DMT.
Okay.
You'll be down.
Oh,
Yeah.
those DMT, the elves. Okay. Oh my God, the
Mhm.
elves. Yeah, I would have something to say about that. Anyway,
Yeah. And then live from the Hive on Saturday. I'll see you all there. Looking forward to it. All right. Thank you for joining me, Speed. And you got
okay.
anything coming up on your channel tomorrow or the next day?
I'm going to try to explain how I apply my scientism and naturalism to ideas in philosophy, and particularly philosophy of the mind. I'm going to try to do a little bit of that, and I think I'm going to bounce it off Scott Duke and James Apperson and see if I can coherently explain the models that I use. Like my starting point for any philosophical problem is strict naturalism, right? And then from there, I build up and attack the problem from that view. And it melts philosophical problems like ethics and basically epistemology and all of that. And I'd like to be a little more clear about my thinking process. So planning on doing that. By the way, everybody out there, there's some names that I haven't seen. I need 3 subscribers to get to 600, please. And it's been like weeks. 597 weeks. 3
Somebody drop
subscribers.
Speed's channel out there. Answers and Atheism. They have these kind of deep conversations over there all the time about the
So
nature of
3 of
reality.
you. Oh, I
Yeah,
ask you.
please. And
Well,
also, I'm pretty close to my 1,000, so I'm going to show that real
yeah,
quick too.
yeah. So
I'm
we've been
almost
trying to
there
do
too.
that. Well, 69 of you would be better because then I'd get the 666. And if I could freeze it right there, I'd stay there, man.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
That's
thanks
my
for
pitch.
thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you later.
Goodbye. Shoot her in the head.